Let me ask you a question before anything else, and really sit with it for a moment. If your paycheck stopped tomorrow, how long could you keep your life exactly the same without relying on a credit card? Not how long you could survive, but how long you could maintain your normal life. A week? A month? Or would that small piece of plastic quietly step in the way it already has so many times before? Because for millions of people who still believe they are middle class, credit cards have become the invisible life support system keeping everything from falling apart. The middle class isn't dying loudly or dramatically. It isn't collapsing overnight. It's fading quietly, slowly, one swipe at a time. Not long ago, being middle class meant something concrete and dependable. It meant stable employment, a home you could afford, reliable transportation, occasional vacations, and enough savings that an unexpected bill didn't feel like a financial emergency. You weren't rich, but you weren't constantly afraid either. Today, that version of the middle class barely exists. Even households with college degrees, dual incomes, and jobs that look good on paper are living one emergency away from debt. Credit cards are no longer used for convenience or luxury. They're used for groceries, gas, medical bills, childcare, and basic survival. And because the bills still get paid and life still looks normal from the outside, no one notices what's really happening underneath. Balances grow quietly. Interest compounds relentlessly. Stress becomes permanent. This is what decline looks like when it happens slowly. It doesn't crash. It erodes. Wages have technically gone up over the years, but real life has gotten more expensive at a much faster pace. Housing costs have exploded in many cities and even small towns. Rent increases have outpaced raises. Homeownership, once the cornerstone of middle-class stability, has moved further out of reach for younger generations and become more fragile for those who already own. Healthcare costs continue to rise, even for people with insurance. Deductibles grow larger, premiums increase, and one medical issue can wipe out years of financial progress. Insurance of every kind costs more. Childcare has become so expensive that for many families it rivals or exceeds a mortgage payment. Education costs continue to rise while the return on that education becomes more uncertain. Even everyday necessities like groceries, utilities, and transportation quietly eat up more of each paycheck. Raises didn't disappear. They just stopped meaning anything. The gap between income and the cost of living widened, and credit cards filled that gap. What used to be considered a comfortable lifestyle is now maintained through minimum payments and financial juggling. Many middle-class households are not technically broke, but they are functionally fragile. They are not behind. They are not delinquent. They are just balancing. That is not financial security. That is financial suspension. What makes this moment especially dangerous is how normal it has become. Carrying balances is normal. Paying interest is normal. Stress is normal. People talk about debt the same way they talk about the weather, as if it's unavoidable and out of their control. A car breaks down and goes on a card. A medical bill arrives and goes on a card. Groceries cost more than expected and go on a card. Over time, these small decisions turn into long-term dependence. One emergency doesn't ruin everything, but 10 emergencies over 10 years quietly do. And because the system still functions, because people still show up to work and pay their bills, the erosion goes unnoticed. There's no headline announcing the death of the middle class. There's just more stress, less savings, longer repayment timelines, and the feeling that no matter how hard you work, you're always behind. Many people blame themselves. They assume they must be bad with money or not disciplined enough. But the truth is far more uncomfortable. The rules changed, and most people were never told. The middle class was built on the assumption that wages would grow alongside productivity, that housing would remain attainable, that healthcare wouldn't bankrupt families, and that one income could reasonably support a household. Over time, those assumptions eroded. Productivity increased, but wages stagnated. Asset prices climbed, but incomes didn't keep pace. The result is a system where work alone is no longer enough to maintain stability. Credit stepped in to bridge the gap, and at first, it felt like a solution. Credit cards offered flexibility. They smoothed out rough months. They made emergencies manageable. But slowly, almost invisibly, credit became a requirement rather than a tool. The middle class didn't notice the shift because nothing collapsed all at once. Instead, financial anxiety became a background noise people learned to live with. The stress of debt blended into everyday life. It became adulthood. And once that happens, it becomes very difficult to imagine a different reality. This quiet transformation has profound psychological effects. When people live with constant financial pressure, their decision-making changes. Long-term planning becomes harder. Risk feels more dangerous. Opportunities feel out of reach. Many middle-class households stop thinking in terms of years and start thinking in terms of pay periods. The future shrinks. Dreams get postponed indefinitely. People stay in jobs they dislike because stability feels fragile. They avoid change because one wrong move could unravel everything. This isn't laziness or fear. It's rational behavior in an unstable system. And yet, because everyone around them is experiencing something similar, it feels personal rather than systemic. People don't see themselves as part of a broader economic shift. They see themselves as failing individually. That belief keeps the cycle going. Another reason the middle class is dying quietly is because debt preserves appearances. Social media still shows vacations, new cars, renovations, and lifestyle upgrades. From the outside, it looks like people are doing fine. But much of that stability is borrowed. Credit allows people to maintain the image of success even as their financial foundation weakens. And because talking openly about debt still carries shame, the truth stays hidden. No one posts their interest statements. No one shares the anxiety they feel checking their balances at night. The result is a collective silence where everyone feels alone in a struggle that millions are experiencing at the same time. That silence is powerful. It prevents awareness, and without awareness, nothing changes. This is not just an economic story. It's a human one. It's about parents worrying quietly about their children's futures. It's about workers doing everything right and still feeling like they're falling behind. It's about people who followed the rules and trusted the system only to find themselves stuck in a cycle they never expected. The middle class isn't disappearing because people stopped working hard. It's disappearing because the cost of stability rose faster than the ability to pay for it. And until that truth is acknowledged, people will continue blaming themselves for problems they didn't create. The quiet death of the middle class becomes even clearer when you look at how emergencies are handled today. An emergency used to be an inconvenience. Now it's a financial event that can reshape years of someone's life. A single medical issue, even with insurance, can introduce thousands of dollars of unexpected costs. A car repair can wipe out what little savings exist. A temporary job loss or reduction in hours can trigger a cascade of missed payments, late fees, and rising balances. None of these events are rare, yet the financial system treats them as if people should have been prepared for all of them at once. For the modern middle class, preparation often means access to credit, not cash. Savings accounts shrink or disappear, replaced by available credit limits. And while credit offers short-term relief, It extracts a long-term cost through interest that quietly compounds month after month. Over time, the emergency doesn't end when the bill is paid. It lingers in the form of higher balances and higher stress. People recover emotionally faster than they recover financially, and that gap becomes permanent for many households. This reliance on credit reshapes priorities. Instead of building wealth, people focus on staying afloat. Instead of planning for the future, they manage the present. Retirement becomes an abstract concept rather than a concrete plan. Savings feel like a luxury rather than a necessity. Even people who understand personal finance intellectually find it difficult to apply when every dollar already has an obligation attached to it. The middle class slowly transitions from ownership to obligation. Homes feel less like assets and more like liabilities. Cars feel less like freedom and more like payments. Education, once seen as an investment, becomes a long-term debt that shapes career decisions for decades. This isn't the result of bad choices in isolation. It's the cumulative effect of a system where costs rise faster than security. What makes this especially painful is that many middle-class families are doing exactly what they're told to do. They work full-time. They pursue education. They budget. They cut back where they can. They avoid obvious extravagance. Yet despite all of this, progress feels impossible. This creates a quiet resentment, not toward any one institution, but toward the idea of effort itself. When effort no longer guarantees stability, people begin to question the value of sacrifice. That disillusionment doesn't always show up as anger. Often, it shows up as exhaustion. People stop striving and start enduring. They lower expectations. They redefine success as survival. And because this shift happens slowly, it rarely triggers alarm bells. It feels like maturity. It feels like realism. But it's actually a loss. Another factor accelerating the decline of the middle class is how risk has been redistributed. In previous generations, institutions absorbed more of life's uncertainty. Employers offered pensions. Jobs were more stable. Healthcare was less expensive. Housing markets were less volatile. Today, that risk has been shifted almost entirely onto individuals. Workers are expected to self-insure against emergencies, retirement, healthcare, and market fluctuations, often without the income or tools to do so effectively. Credit fills the gaps, but credit is not protection. It's deferred vulnerability. The more someone relies on it, the less resilient they become. And because the consequences are delayed, the danger is easy to underestimate until it's too late. This environment changes how people view themselves. Financial stress becomes internalized as personal inadequacy. People feel embarrassed about their balances even when those balances are the predictable result of systemic pressures. They avoid conversations about money. They avoid asking for help. They isolate themselves emotionally while appearing functional externally. This isolation reinforces the idea that everyone else is doing better, even when they're not. It becomes harder to imagine alternatives because no one seems to be living them. The middle class, once defined by shared progress and collective stability, becomes fragmented into individual struggles that are never compared openly. That fragmentation benefits the system that thrives on silence. As the middle class weakens, its traditional markers lose meaning. Homeownership no longer guarantees security. Degrees no longer guarantee mobility. Full-time work no longer guarantees stability. These were the pillars people relied on to measure progress. When they stop delivering the promised outcomes, confusion follows. People continue investing in these paths because they don't see viable alternatives, even as the returns diminish. This creates a sense of being trapped, not just financially, but psychologically. The belief that there is no other way keeps people locked into systems that no longer serve them. And because the decline is gradual, people adapt instead of resisting. Adaptation looks like resilience, but it can also look like surrender. The most troubling part is that this erosion affects future generations before they even begin. Children raised in financially stressed households absorb that anxiety early. They learn caution before curiosity. They learn fear before confidence. They internalize the idea that money is always tight, that mistakes are catastrophic, that stability is fragile. This shapes their choices long before they enter the workforce. The middle class doesn't just shrink economically. It shrinks culturally. The sense of possibility that once defined it fades. People stop expecting progress and start hoping for survival. That shift has consequences that last far beyond individual bank accounts. The quiet death of the middle class isn't caused by a single policy or event. It's the result of layered pressures compounding over time. Rising costs, stagnant wages, normalized debt, shifted risk, and social silence all reinforce each other. Each factor alone might be manageable. Together, they form a system that slowly drains resilience. People don't fall out of the middle class all at once. They hover on the edge for years, telling themselves they're fine because they're still functioning. But functioning isn't thriving, and stability built on debt is temporary by design. What's often missing from this conversation is honesty. Honest conversations about money, debt, and stress disrupt the illusion that everything is working as intended. They reveal patterns instead of individual failures. They challenge the narrative that hard work alone determines outcomes. That honesty is uncomfortable, but it's necessary. Without it, people continue to internalize problems that are larger than them. The middle class doesn't need motivation. It needs recognition. Recognition that the struggle is real, widespread, and not a reflection of personal worth. And this is where awareness becomes powerful. When people begin to see their experience as part of a broader pattern, shame loosens its grip. Isolation fades. Questions replace blame. Why does it take so much effort just to stay in place? Why does progress feel impossible despite doing everything right? These questions don't solve the problem immediately, but they change the direction of thought. They open the door to new conversations, new expectations, and eventually, new demands. Systems rarely change when people blame themselves. They change when people recognize shared reality. This moment in history will likely be remembered not for a dramatic collapse of the middle class, but for its slow transformation into something more fragile and uncertain. The danger lies in mistaking that fragility for normalcy. When stress becomes routine, it stops being questioned. When debt becomes common, it stops being challenged. When survival becomes the goal, progress quietly disappears. The middle class doesn't vanish overnight. It fades into a constant state of strain that people learn to live with, even as it drains their energy, hope, and future. At some point, many people sense that something is wrong even if they can't fully articulate it. They feel it in the constant tension they carry, the way money thoughts never fully turn off, the way every decision feels heavier than it should. They feel it when they hesitate to open bills, when they delay checking their accounts, when they tell themselves they'll deal with it later because dealing with it now feels overwhelming. This isn't irresponsibility. It's emotional overload. When the middle class was healthier, money problems were occasional disruptions. Today, for many households, they are the default state. Living under constant financial pressure rewires how people think and behave. It narrows focus, increases anxiety, and reduces long-term planning. People don't stop caring about the future because they don't value it. They stop because the present demands everything they have. This is one of the quietest but most damaging effects of middle-class decline. It steals not just money, but mental space. What makes this especially difficult is that the system rewards silence. As long as people keep paying, keep working, and keep coping, nothing appears broken from the outside. Debt payments flow. Interest accumulates. Consumption continues. From a distance, it looks like stability. But stability built on exhaustion is fragile. The moment people stop believing they can ever get ahead, participation changes. They disengage emotionally even if they stay physically present. Work becomes transactional. Loyalty disappears. Optimism fades. This isn't a moral failure. It's a predictable response to prolonged strain. The middle class once functioned as a buffer between insecurity and abundance. As that buffer erodes, more people live closer to the edge than they realize, even while appearing successful. There is also a generational tension growing beneath the surface. Older generations remember a time when one income could support a family, when homes were attainable, when debt felt optional rather than necessary. Younger generations inherit a reality where those conditions no longer exist. This creates misunderstanding and frustration on both sides. Advice that once worked no longer applies, yet it continues to be offered as universal truth. When people try those strategies and fail, they internalize the failure rather than questioning whether the environment has changed. That gap in understanding deepens isolation and reinforces the idea that struggling is a personal flaw rather than a shared experience shaped by broader forces. Despite all of this, the story of the middle class isn't finished. Decline doesn't mean disappearance, and awareness creates the possibility of change. The first step toward reclaiming stability is recognizing reality without shame. Many people are not behind because they made bad decisions. They are behind because the cost of stability rose faster than the systems meant to support it. Naming that truth doesn't fix everything overnight, but it restores something essential: clarity. And clarity is powerful. It allows people to stop fighting themselves and start questioning structures. It creates room for new conversations about money, work, housing, healthcare, and what a sustainable life should actually look like. The middle class doesn't need to be reminded to work harder. It needs conditions where effort leads somewhere again. It needs systems that reward stability instead of extracting from it. And it needs honesty, not judgment. Until those things change, many people will continue living in this quiet in-between state, not poor enough to collapse, not secure enough to relax, constantly managing risk with debt and hoping nothing goes wrong. That is not failure. That is endurance. But endurance was never meant to be a permanent way of life. If any part of this felt familiar, you're not alone, even if it often feels that way. These experiences are shared by millions of people who rarely talk about them openly. If this video resonated with you, take a moment to hit the like button so this message can reach others who are quietly carrying the same weight. Leave a comment sharing what part of the middle-class struggle feels most real in your life right now. Share this video with someone who works hard but still feels stuck. And subscribe to the channel for honest conversations about money, debt, and the realities people live every day but rarely discuss. The middle class isn't quietly dying because people failed. It's struggling because the ground beneath it shifted, and understanding that is the first step toward building something better.